Okay, you mentioned that Malta's no longer the pitch for Crimsonwing. I mean, it's all about the solutions now. So how did that transition occur?
Yeah, it's a transition which was important to us because we know that with Malta, there's always going to be somewhere that looks more attractive in the world from maybe a pricing perspective or even a scalability or a capability perspective. So getting into solutions was the important part of it. And in terms of how it occurred, we basically decided on those solutions that we wanted to work in. So we chose particularly around two areas. One was a ERP solution, which is called mainly Dynamics, Microsoft Dynamics. The other area was e-business, where we worked on a number of platforms, which was particularly Intershop platforms and now Magento open source platforms. And the point about those solutions is there's a very high content of services. So we knew that by becoming accredited in those and becoming skilled in those areas and experienced, that we would be able to then offer a Crimsonwing solution, first and foremost, based on those solutions and brands, Microsoft for example, and deliver it using our Malta capability. So the leading message then becomes a solution.
Mm.
What's great about it is that, as I think I described, the engine, if you like, is Malta. The engine under the covers is Malta, of this amazing motor car that people want to buy. And they're getting a very good performance from that. So they're getting a very strong business case from that. They're getting a reliable service from that. They're getting good quality from that. So Malta becomes a little bit more under the covers, but it's really good for the client that actually it's in the solution and how we deliver it.
Okay, and you mentioned, I mean, some of the advantages of having the team in Malta are the low attrition, wage inflation is quite low. I mean, comparable to other
Yes.
locations.
Yeah.
But something you mentioned that was particularly attractive was around corporation tax. Could you just maybe give the short version of why is it so attractive for tax purposes to locate your company there?
Yeah, I think it will depend a little bit on the circumstances around a particular company. But in our case, we originally were a UK registered group with subsidiaries around Europe, including Malta.
Mm.
What we did is we centred the corporation around Malta. So the PLC, the parent company, if you like, of Crimsonwing, is now a registered Malta company with the subsidiaries around that. And being a public company, the way that the shareholding works with shareholders who are actually external to Malta, or are not residents of Malta, that means that you can recoup a proportion of your corporation tax. In our case, that comes to 6/7 of the corporation tax. So obviously that's a clear benefit to having the PLC registered in Malta. For other companies who may not have that public structure or shareholding structure, there are still benefits by becoming an international trading company. You may not get as much benefit as that, but it's certainly attractive and it's certainly something that should be looked at closely if you're deciding to actually center your operations there.
Okay. Well, in general, there seems to be a sort of beach culture. Malta is known for holidays and people from Europe, all over Europe, taking vacations there. But you know, does that go into the work culture? I mean, is it a very 9 to 5 type culture? Would you agree that this sense of beach culture and public holidays infuses itself into the work culture within your own industry?
I think it's rather counterintuitively, it's the other way around because predominantly our workforce is Maltese. Actually, in the summer, they prefer to be in an air-conditioned office. It's the working day starts pretty early. Obviously, people do like to go onto a beach, perhaps later, even with families and have barbecues and things. But the point is that our main point at which people tend to take vacation in Malta tends to be around Christmas time, which is more of the sort of religious festivals and family time. So we don't have any perception at all that there's any beach culture within the culture of Crimsonwing. And certainly when you look at the performance of the company and some of the commitments that we get out of the staff, it just doesn't factor in at all.
Mm. Well, and some of the advantages of Malta are its proximity to other regions within Europe, and the quality of the human resources. But clearly you can't scale there. So how do you? I mean, what do you see really as the strengths of working with Malta?
I think the strengths of working in Malta are, well, if we take it back to what the proposition is, you need to have good experienced people, you need to have a good quality system around the delivery so it's consistent, and you need to have, effectively as a, if you like, a contemporary IT business, you need to have something that is cost effective, that has to be part of any software and services business, and all companies, be they large vendors like IBM or small companies like Crimsonwing, you've got to have some of that capability within your mix. For us, Malta's been great because a lot of it's to do with obviously human resources. We get a lot of loyalty. We get a lot of good feedback on our staff, and when we're looking at building strong relationships with clients, we're finding we're getting a lot of repeat business. So it's like a virtuous circle. So you've got the good starting point, you do a good project, that client will come back for more services, and the productivity keeps improving, and everyone is sort of happy with that. And I think by that proximity and the quality of the staff and that sort of loyalty of staff, it kind of binds the whole thing together. It works very well.
Okay, and you mentioned that you're hiring right now. So where are those people coming from?
Well, the market's changed a lot in Malta over the years. We've been there since 1998, so we've been there about 12 years. When we started, the market was very tight, and in fact, a lot of the staff came out of the government's own management systems unit, which was actually part really of an initiative the government did to seed the IT industry, partly, and they were very happy to see Crimsonwing coming in. Now it's changed a lot. There's a lot more players out there. You could say, yes, we compete like everyone else in the market for good people. There's still a good source of graduates coming through, and a lot more in terms of technical colleges as well. So I think one of the main differences I've noticed in the last few years is that, particularly on graduates, instead of coming out and having to put them through further training in terms of some software techniques or whatever, very often we're able to put graduates out straight onto projects. So the actual relevance of the actual courses they're doing, both at university and the technical colleges, is much more tuned now to the demands of the industry, and that's very good.
And then finally, you mentioned that you were focused on sort of disconnecting the number of staff with the revenue. Sort of, as every business owner wants to see, exponential growth without the same level of staff growth. But I mean, do you see that it is this kind of expertise, the improvement in staff, and the focus on solutions is really the way to achieve that?
Yeah, I think it's a balance, isn't it? Because an interesting thing that's happened in the last 12 months is that a lot of businesses have stopped doing projects, they've stopped buying software licenses. So all of a sudden, companies which relied on software licenses a lot for their revenues, typically 40 or 50% of revenues for a lot of partners, they've really struggled, haven't they? Because they've certainly halved their revenues. We've had revenues in licenses of less than 10%. Obviously, we want to grow that, okay? But I think the thing about the licenses is that if you're not careful, you can hide a very inefficient services model. What we've got in Crimsonwing is a very efficient services model, and by adding the license capability and the solutions capability on top, then suddenly we've got a good platform for growth. But it is a balance.
And how would the rate of productivity compare to a place like India? I mean, in your industry?
I can answer you how it compares with the client's productivity, which is maybe more relevant actually, because we have been benchmarked in Crimsonwing against our client's own in-house IT capability, and the benchmarks always show that we are as productive having the same people working effectively on the client premises. So that's great, and for me that's the most important thing. In terms of benchmarking with another sort of geographic location, I think it's a little bit difficult for us to judge. We have, as you know, we have worked in the past with India. I would say that I think one of Malta's strengths is in our sweet spot, which is typically projects which might involve between 5 and 20 people maximum. I don't think you'll get better productivity in that team. I think what we found working with India is that it is a bit more of a numbers game. When you're looking for a team of say 10 people, you might actually have a team of 20 people working there. That's somehow a way of perhaps compensating for getting the throughput of the project, but that's not necessarily how we work. And we've always said we'd like to have fewer people who are actually more experienced and higher productivity than just a larger number of people. So that's the Malta model, is to be precise and to have that good productivity.